Hello, 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 and welcome.
It's that time of week again? Is it?
That time of week? Maybe. Sounds like.
Hmm. What time of week is it? Uh, Time to do the laundry? No, that's not it. No. Okay, all right. I give up. What time of week is it?
It's
Okay.
time for 2.5 opinions.
Ah, 2.5 opinions. Okay, so I guess I'm Frank.
I'm Nisha.
And don't we have a third member?
Oh, I guess I didn't have my mic hit. And I'm here.
Hey, here. How you doing?
Doing well. How are you doing?
Yeah. Little by little.
So the sun is setting. It's a beautiful sunset in Oklahoma land. The sky is vivid with colors of orange and red and blues and hazes of white and crimson. And it's a nice day. This is crazy. I'm starting to believe Al Gore.
No. No.
Well, I mean, this is unusually warm, and it has been unusually warm for many weeks here in Oklahoma, where I'm not sure what it got up to today, but I know it had to have been in the high 60s. It was a beautiful, gorgeous day for the end of November in Oklahoma, and I remember back in the 80s when I first moved to Oklahoma. Every Thanksgiving there was some type of a storm, whether it be a snowstorm or an ice storm. We'd always already had our first real cold bite of winter by the time Thanksgiving comes along. And here in the past couple of years, it's not there. It's global warming. I'm telling you, I'm
Well,
ready to believe now.
yeah, okay, sure. No, we did have a 32 or 30 something, and then we had just the other day we had 21 degrees. So yeah, we've had a couple bites, but it's not unprecedented in Oklahoma to have highs in I mean, there are some records, 80 degrees, etc. So I mean, it's not unusual.
Warming.
So
many years ago.
You're saying that the weather changes a lot, and
it's climate change. Yes.
It has been hotter and it has been colder, and it's been hotter and it's been colder, and what has happened will happen again. And there's patterns, and we go through streams of different aspects. Yet, when I look out in the world, and I see so many shattered and destroyed families and relationships with friends, relationships with fathers and sons and daughters and mothers. These relationships are being shattered like I've never seen or experienced in my lifetime. And yet the weather keeps on moving, highs and lows and highs and lows.
Yep. So
And
what
now we come
happens
into
to
Torah
the
Portion of what? What is God telling us in our Torah portion this week?
So what happens to the ancestors happens to the descendants? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think I think that God doesn't change. The weather might change, but God doesn't.
Right.
Families change. Humankind and humanity's approach to anything and everything constantly changes. There's upheavals and there's times of peace. There's times of war and there's times of growth. There's times of death and there's times of giving. Oh, wait a minute. I'm starting to sound like for everything there is a season, huh?
Yeah. Turn.
A time to die, a time to kill, a time to destroy.
You got that Beatles song on the brain, which is actually
I know. It wasn't the Beatles, it was the Birds.
Yeah.
And birds flew in from the West Coast, and like the burritos and the Eagles, I'm sorry, that's an old David Allan Coe song.
Right. But the Birds got it from the Bible, so
I'm sure nobody in our audience understands that the David Allan Coe song reference that I was making, because he references the Beatles and the flying burritos and the birds and the eagles. And anyways, yes, I guess all we're saying is that as humanity changes up and down, we want to understand our times based on the headlines of when we live. But yet, if we look at the earth, the weather has always been changing.
Yeah.
The sun has always been changing. The things around us have always been changing, but over a slower pace and on a set schedule. Whereas man, not so much. And so we have changes going on in our Torah portion, the changes within a family, the changes within a people. And we're going to see changes within yet a different people than what we've experienced since Abraham. And the earth keeps on spinning, and God still has absolute control. So we're going to come across some specific things in our Torah portion this week of, can God deal with man? Can man make a deal with God? In other words, can man reach out and say, you know what, God, if you'll do this for me, then I'll do this for you?
So we're talking Monty Hall type thing?
It's even worse than that, because there's a specific passage, and I know we're going to get there, but it almost sounds as though Jacob is saying, you know what, God, if you'll do this for me, I'll let you be my God.
Wow, what does God get out of it?
Almost sounds like he's picking up from his grandfather.
If you want to read it that way, yes. And if you're going to read that Abraham Jewed God down, if you want to read that Abraham made deals with God on Abraham's terms, then yes, you're absolutely correct in how you want to discern this and interpret this. But the problem is, it comes from our translation, and it comes with a very loaded question. If God is God, what must he be? And I don't think most of Western mankind, especially modern Western mankind, has ever really delved into that question. If there is a God, what must God be? It's not Santa Claus up in the sky that's going to give me anything.
Right.
It's not some emotional being that, boy, if I just don't do it his way, then he's going to be mad at me and he's going to bar up the heavens.
Thunderbolts and lightning, very, very frightening.
Absolutely. If God is driven by emotion, then that's not the God I want. I want the God that's in charge of emotions.
Yeah.
So if God is driven by love, driven by mercy, driven by anger, driven by judgment, if God is driven by these things, then I'm sorry, he's not in control. I want the God of those emotions. But we've been sold a lie, folks, from all religions around us, that God is driven by emotions because we want God to be a man. And so we read in this Torah portion that Jacob says, if you'll do all these things for me, then I'll let you be God. And oh, by the way, I'll give you 10% back of everything you give me.
Yeah. And God is not a man that he should change his mind. Meaning God is not a man, period.
Can't be bought or
right.
lent or persuaded.
Correct.
But if we're going to go on that subject, let's give our audience what we are working on tonight. So
first aliyah or specific point, or
2 seconds, keep rolling.
Okay. A specific point in time. There's a signpost up ahead. Sorry, I couldn't resist. Oh, man. So, while he's looking for the particular parts of the Torah that are going to be read, I don't think that it does us any good to try and bargain with God. God holds all the cards in the first place. So what is it that you actually have that you think you can bargain with? So, but that'll probably come up later on. So.
All right. So for now, I am actually in a better position. We can get going.
Okay.
I believe it will be the first Aliyah as our target for this evening.
Okay, and you have
for those reading along, it is Genesis chapter 28, verse 10 through 28:22.
And do you want to give out the call-in phone number in case we have somebody that's brave enough to call in? Or
are they truly brave enough? I wonder. No. The phone number was 1-828.
Okay. Well, you're looking for. Why don't we move on?
Stalled. Brain.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Moving on. We'll get to the number later.
Okay, I'll do the blessing then. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bakar banu mikol ha'amim v'tan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai notein haTorah. Melech Naaman.
Amen. Genesis chapter 28, verse 10 through 22. And Jacob left Beersheba, and he went to Haran. And he arrived at the place and lodged there because the sun had set. And he took some of the stones of the place and placed them at his head, and he laid down in that place. And he dreamed, and behold, a ladder set up on the ground, and its top reached to heaven. And behold, angels of God were ascending and descending upon it. And behold, the Lord was standing over him, and he said, I am the Lord, the God of Abraham your father, the God of Isaac. The land which you are lying, to you I will give it, and to your seed. And your seed shall be as the dust of the earth, and you shall gain strength westward and eastward, and northward and southward. And through you shall be blessed all the families of the earth, and through your seed. And behold, I am with you, and I will guard you wherever you go, and I will restore you to this land. For I will not forsake you until I have done what I have spoken concerning you. And Jacob awakened from his sleep, and he said, Indeed, the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it. And he was frightened, and he said, How awesome is this place! This is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven. And Jacob arose early in the morning, and he took the stone that he had placed at his head, and he set it up as a monument, and he poured oil on top of it, and he named the place Bethel, but Luz was originally the name of the city. And Jacob uttered a vow, saying, If God will be with me, and he will guard me on this way upon which I am going, and he will give me bread to eat and a garment to wear, and if I return in peace to my father's house, and the Lord will be my God, then this stone which I have placed as a monument shall be a house of God, and everything that you give me I will surely tithe to you.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah imet v'kayei olam nota b'tukenu. Baruch atah Adonai notein haTorah. Melech Naaman. So, I guess, according to the way some translations are written, it sounds like he's trying to make a bargain. Hey, God, you give me this, I'll give you this back. How's that, huh? What, no good? You want more? Okay. How about this? Yeah, sounds like it. But I think that stems basically from the fact that King Jimmy is a translation of, and not, you know, of course, King Jimmy was good enough for Moses. It's good enough for us, right? Okay. I know the old joke, but it's not. It's you need to try and understand what it comes from. What's the source of it? At least that's what I understand. Uh, Chris, Jesse, anything? Anyone? Bueller? Bueller?
Sorry, was trying to find the mute button.
Oh.
The unmute button in this case.
Right.
But now this...
So, you read from the Kabod.org, which is JPS, right?
JPS? No, from my
JPS stands for Jerusalem Publication Society, and no, Chabad is not the same, and they have a different translation.
Okay. All right. I knew it was different from the King Jimmy, so. So where are we going?
Where are we going with this? Well, this portion is rather interesting, but finding individual targets, we only have like about an hour to cover, and so much is in here. So why don't we just start with the translation confusion, because I do remember wholeheartedly that in previous Bibles that I had read, previous Bibles that I had tried to study from, they usually try to interpret it as, if God will be with me, and he will guard me on his way upon which I am going, and he will give me bread to eat and a garment to wear, and if I return in peace to my Father's house, then the Lord will be my God, and this stone which I have placed as a monument shall be a house of God, and everything that you give me I will surely tithe to you. But in Chabad's translation, they choose to go with a different pattern, saying that if I return in peace to my Father's house and the Lord will be my God, then this stone which I have placed as a monument shall be a house of God.
Okay, so we can bring about some clarification to our very confused and lost audience of silence is horrible if you're listening to someone talk.
True.
Especially when you cannot respond. And so we have to treat this like radio, is where we've got to keep things going and pretend like we know what we're talking about and pretend like we have a show to do here.
Oh, so boy, are we in trouble?
So King James Version says this, and Jacob vowed a vow saying, if, and whenever you start out a sentence if, then there must be a then. It's an if-then statement, and it's a statement. It's not a question. It's not a pleading. It's not a bargaining. It's not asking anything. It is a statement. If then. If A is true, then B must be true because of something else. So King James Version says, and Jacob vowed a vow saying, if God will be with me and will keep me in this way that I am going, and will give me bread to eat and remnant to put on, so that I come again to my Father's house in peace, then, and here we get the then portion of his statement, then, after God has done all this for me, then shall Hashem be my God. And This stone which I've set for a pillar shall be God's house. Well, this is crazy. This is Meshuggah. And on top of all that, Jacob is going to be so gracious and so giving, and he's going to say, and all that thou shalt give me, I will surely give 1/10 of it back to you. Wow. How is this? Reading this translation, this is King James, reading this translation, he's saying, if you will do all this stuff for me, I'm going to let you be my God. And of everything that you give me, I'll give you back a smidgen of it, 1/10 of it.
The vigorish. I'll give you back the vigorish.
This is a good deal. This is meaningful. This means what? So the King James Version translation doesn't help me out very well. Let's go to the New American Standard Version, which happens to be a version that I really generally appreciate. And New American Standard says, then Jacob made a vow saying, if, here's that if statement again. This is a statement. If God will be with me and will keep me on this journey that I take and will give me food to eat and garments to wear, and I return to my father's house in safety, then Hashem will be my God. He's not my God now. But if you prove yourself to me, if you do your homework, if you clean your room, then I'll let you be my son. And this stone which I have set as a pillar will be God's house, and all that you give me, I will surely give you 1/10. Again, this is craziness to me. It makes no sense. If man can stipulate what God must do in order to be his own personal God, and in this statement it makes it sound as though Jacob is so narcissistic and self-fulfilling that Jacob is saying, if you keep me safe on this journey, and if you give me enough to eat and enough to drink, and you give me clothes to wear, then when I return, only in safety, if I'm harmed in any way, deal's off, God. You're not going to be my God. If I get holes in the knees of my pants, I'm sorry, deal's off. Then I'll let you be my God. This just makes no sense to me in these translations. And so then I'll go to Young's literal translation or the Woost Study Bible, and I see something a little bit different. And Jacob vowed with a vow, saying, seeing that God is with me. Ooh, this is different. Now, this is a literal translation from a Christian understanding. Understanding that God is with me, seeing that God is with me. He understands because there's physical evidence and physical proof for it. Hence, the seeing God is with me. And he has kept me in the way in which I am going. And he has given me bread to eat and garments to wear. Now, when I return back to this very place in peace and to my father's house, and Hashem has proven to become my God, then this stone which I have made a standing pillar will be established as a house of God, and I will repay my tithes in this place. That brings out a completely different understanding. And this is a Christian's literal translation. This is not a version of whatever Bible you're reading. Again, most Christian Bibles are versions of somebody else's translation. It is not a true translation. And so when Chabad brings about something, or the Jerusalem Publication Society, JPS, brings about something that sounds different from what you might be reading in your Christian Bible, it's because they're trying to present a translation that is understandable. So we see something different here. We see that Jacob is saying, you've already proven yourself to be God. But I have a journey. I have a task that I must keep.
So viewing it in that fashion, you could easily play off the aspect of, instead of this whole if then this, if this then that, it could be more of a situation of, so these are what you have promised to me. So since these are what you have promised to me, this is what I promise to you.
And that's just it, because this comes on the heels of a nighttime revelation that Jacob has received. He fell asleep. He didn't put his head on a stone. Nobody does that. He put stones around his head, because when you're in an area with, especially with sheep and goats and livestock, then you build a corral around yourself as well as a corral around your animals. And the corral around yourself is to keep anybody from invading in and stepping on you while you're asleep, whether it be a wolf, a bear, a goat, or an elk. It doesn't matter. You're going to build a corral around yourself. And this is what Jacob has done. He's not laying his head on a stone as much as the stone that he decides to lay underneath and places other stones around. This stone will become a pillar. And you've got to ask yourself, why is he stopping here? Because in the beginning of our Torah portion, no less than 4 times does it say, with the definite article, the place. The place. The place. What place is this?
Mount Moriah.
It's very obscure. It's one of those things where if you're not understanding the overarching story, and the overarching story is the life of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, then you have no clue as to what the place is. You just assume it's someplace. Yeah, it's up there on the mountain. That's cool. Yeah, let's just go ahead and make a reach. Oh yeah, it happens to be the same place that Isaac was sacrificed. It happens to be the place where we're going to come up and build a temple. It happens to be the place where Jesus was sacrificed. It happens to be the same place. This is not happenstance, is what the Torah portion is trying to tell you. He went to this place specifically for a purpose and a reason. But our Torah is absent as to that reason. But we do know that something's troubling Jacob.
If it went to the place, it was one of those moments of preordainment with the backing of free will type things. This is the location that I expect to give you this vision.
So this is a soul searching?
It's a soul searching, but why would Jacob go to this place for his soul searching? There's enough mountains around in the region, or at least hilltops.
Well, I'm sure he's heard the stories from his grandfather and from his father. I would assume, because that's how family history was passed down, was orally, right?
So this place has something established with it, an understanding, a connection with it, whether it be with ancestry or there is other people here already. Because everything Jacob says in Hebrew is past tense. And this is odd and weird. And I've heard some of those Messianic preachers come out and thinking they know Hebrew will say there is no past tense. There's no tense, present tense, future tense, or past tense in Hebrew. And they are sorely mistaken, only because they just don't know the language. I don't know anything else, and they want to present themselves as authoritarian on something or knowledgeable on something.
Because based on just solely understanding of Hebrew, even modern Hebrew today, and from my understanding of Hebrew in general, modern Hebrew and biblical Hebrew has not changed. The only thing that has truly changed in any way, shape, or form is maybe if you want to jump all the way to the archaeological stuff, you can assume that that is where Hebrew came from. But then that's taking us off on a different tangent. The primary focus is, from my understanding, Hebrew has past, present, future tense. It even has masculine and female and feminine representations of words. It has its own well-being and life of a normal human. There is no there's no neuter in the sense that English uses neuter, because
Well,
neuter,
let me help you out with this. Let me help you out. And you've studied Hebrew and the classical languages and the languages of the world, whether it be Spanish, French, German, even in I almost said Chinese, but it's not Chinese. There's no such language as Chinese, but even some of the Eastern languages. But let's keep it simple. Modern languages and ancient languages, in the languages that have developed English, Spanish, French, German, and some in the Celtic areas. Each of those languages have a feminine noun and a masculine noun, and they're pronounced different. So if I were to say mijo, well, those of you that know Spanish know I'm talking about a small male child. But if I were to say mija, then you'd know I'm talking about a small female child. And so how the word is pronounced. And in German, you would have the definitive article of der, das, dem, and die. And each one of these presents masculine, feminine, or neutered. So the point that Jesse is bringing about is Hebrew does the same thing. There are masculine names and nouns, such as the sun would be masculine and the moon would be feminine. Why is this important? Because when we come to setting up tenses of verbs and tenses of nouns, and the subject and the predicate of a sentence, and we formulate all these words together, this is horrible, because I remember my poor high school English teacher is probably rolling over in her grave because I was such a horrible grammarian. But it is.
Sorry.
If you're approaching a language and you're translating it and you do not understand the nuances of the words that make up a sentence that can be discernible and understandable and transmit information to you, then you will say, if God will do this, then I will do this. And what that translator is trying to present to you is there is no tense, future or past tense, in Hebrew, but that is not true. And so the Christian scholars that have studied Hebrew and know Hebrew, the Young's Literal Translation, the Wuest Study Bible, and others will come back and they will say, oh, wait a minute, you don't know Hebrew. King Jimmy, New American Standard, RSV, the other versions,
etc., etc., etc.
Hebrew. He's saying this in past tense, but the reason you're translating it in a future tense is because it makes no sense in past tense unless you understand the overarching of all of this. And gosh, every time I get on this show, I swear I am not going to say anything. I'll let Jesse and Jesse and Frank take over.
Josh? Okay, I'm being replaced? Okay,
no,
fine.
But the reason this is so important, and this is my point, the reason it is so important is because the exact same blessing that God gave Abraham, he is giving to Jacob. And we see no place else in all of Tanakh where the exact same blessing given from God to anybody is repeated except with these two individuals. And I guess I need to nail it down even more specifically, and that is this blessing that I will bless you and your descendants, and I will give you and your descendants this land. And here's the crucial point, folks. Hold on to your seats. Fasten your seatbelts. We're coming in for a bumpy landing. And all of mankind will be blessed, not through you alone, but through you and your descendants. That was given to Abraham, and now it's given to Jacob. And upon realizing and understanding this, and again, emet, the word emet, aleph mem tav, eternal reality, is driving us back to God is constant. He does not change. He's not driven by time. He's not driven by circumstance. He's not driven by your actions. He's not driven by emotions. When God says something, it happens. Otherwise, he cannot be God.
Right.
His words cannot fail. Ecclesiastes and Proverbs tell us that his word goes forth out of his mouth and does not return to him without completing what it was supposed to do.
Right. Right.
God spoke to Abraham. He is now fulfilling that promise and providing that promise to Jacob. And Jacob is coming under the realization of this. This isn't just some story that Granddad told me. This isn't just me tricking my brother and tricking my father. There was no tricking going on here. God has revealed something so deep, so spiritual to Jacob in a night vision that Jacob wakes up and he says, because you always were, and because you are now, and because you will be when I return, then this place will continue to exist. It's not that he's establishing a new place. This place already existed, continues to exist, and will continue to exist long after Jacob is gone, because the promise is predicated upon Jacob's so many words are flooding into my mind. The promise to Jacob is predicated upon to Jacob's past and Jacob's future. All of his fathers before him and all of his descendants after him. The promise wasn't just for Jacob alone, but for everyone that comes from Jacob.
So because of this, I could easily assume and say that this blessing that you speak of is the reason why many rabbis come out and say that there's a reason why there are only 3 patriarchs and it stops at Jacob and starts with Abraham. They may be bookmarks of sorts.
This is part of it, yes.
This is part of it, yes. I'm probably bleeding over your mic and my mic and everybody else's mic, but this is part of it, yes. That it's going to drive us into a different discussion and approach, which we've had before and will continue to have. But especially when we get into the next couple of weeks, when we go into Joseph, why isn't Joseph part of the 3 patriarchs? Because after all, within the Messianic mindset, what Joseph is the foreshadowing of Yeshua. So therefore, Joseph should take precedence over the others, shouldn't he? Or at least slightly be included with the others. But he's not one of the patriarchs. Why not? Because we already have Isaac.
Right.
And isn't it odd that Isaac wasn't given this promise, that through your descendants? Isaac wasn't given a promise by God for anything. That's odd.
Yet Isaac was one of the most well-respected people and most well-off.
And Isaac is, well, wow, just kind of like Jacob. Isaac is the son that is going to be lost to his father and then restored to his father. Just like Jacob has a son that is going to be lost to him and restored to him. And we see so many similarities between Jacob and Abraham. We see so many things. The same route that Jacob is going to return. I mean, I could go on and
right.
on.
It's the same route that actually Abraham actually traveled in order to get to the land of Canaan.
Yeah, I mean, Jacob is going to flee from Esau and Beersheba, and then he's going to flee from Laban and Haran.
Mm-hmm.
Jacob is going to meet angels leaving the land, and he's going to meet angels when he returns to the land. He leaves to gain a wife, but this one wife that he's going to seek actually becomes 2, and within the 2 are 2 others.
Mm-hmm.
He has 2 wives and 4 concubines that brings him the 12 tribes. Laban runs to meet Jacob and to greet him as he enters Laban's land, and then he runs to chase him as he's leaving the land. Jacob leaves his father, his land, and his relatives to go to Haran. Abraham leaves his father and his relatives and the land, Haran, to come into the land of promise.
So
Jacob takes the exact route to return to as Abraham took initially when entering the land. Jacob's name is changed only after a memorable physical actuality when Avram's name is changed as a result of a spiritual and physical actuality. Jacob labors for 20 years and his wages are changed 10 times. Israel labors for 200 years and is released only after 10 plagues. Do you see the similarities now? So you must read this Torah portion as other Torah portions, but this one specifically in a spiritual mindset as it's played out in the physical realm, not a physical story with spiritual applications.
So for interesting fact to play on it more, because I've seen a few statements pop up here and there on Lamb Chat. One of them asking if the stone that was near Jacob's head was possibly placed as the cornerstone for the temple, considering its location. But there's that one. And then another one later on was following your train of thought on the comparisons of Jacob and Abraham and Jacob and Isaac and Jacob and the nation of Israel, and pose the question, so Jacob never got to see his mother after he left? After he left.
Both those questions are very interesting, and because it's the same type of thing with Isaac. Do we ever see Isaac and his mother meet again after Isaac comes down from the mountain? No. So there's some similarities there. There's a lot of similarities in Abraham's life and Jacob's life, as well as this whole everlasting intertwining of our patriarchs. It's like the Mobius loop. It keeps happening and nothing really changes. Now back to the first question, regarding the stone, is this the cornerstone of the temple? That's an interesting question, and all I can say is, and please don't take offense whoever's asking this, I don't mean it in any judgmental or demeaning aspect whatsoever, but if it were, so what? What does it mean? Does it change your perspective on anything? Does it enlighten anything, or does it just give you goosebumps? If it's just giving you goosebumps and saying, ooh, isn't that neat? Well, then go join the Christian crowd. And I'm being harsh, purposely harsh, not to offend you. But the Christians are always looking for something to give them goosebumps. Hence, they chase miracles and aspirations, and they have to have a demon god and a good god, a bad god, and so many things. What the Torah portion is trying to present to you is this is spiritual reality understood in physical perspectives. What is the spiritual reality that we need to understand? The harder question is not so much the stone as why the place. Is God tied to a place? Because the implications are there that, yes, there is a place that he's tied to. That implication is here. And it will be tied throughout all of Tanakh. That implication that God is tied to a place will go forth into the prophets. Those that do not come up to Jerusalem once a year at Sukkot, out of all of the world, not just Jews, out of all humanity that do not come up to Jerusalem and present their offerings at Sukkot, then their land will be cursed without rain. There is a place that God is tied to, and that perplexes me.
Well, if
that's
I may.
a different, yeah, that's a different argument and a different thing.
No.
But all I'm trying to say is it's not so much about the stone as it is about the place.
Right. And if I may, I just want to reiterate the differences in translations, because that's what it is. But if we look at the literal text, he just had this dream, and the Most High, blessed be he, has already said all these things. And he again reiterates those. So he's not making a bargain. Okay, that's what I wanted to get across. Jacob is not making a bargain. He's just saying, you've already shown me these things, Father. Okay, please continue with me. Not, okay, hey, let's make a deal. It's please continue with me, and I will do this because you have already benefited me. You've already blessed me. You have already done so much for me. So I just wanted to reiterate that, because that was where we started into this topic. So let me see if I get this. We have here, as you've already enumerated, many couplets, many bookends. Same path that Abraham took is the same path that Jacob is taking, and all the different connections within that. So, and I brought this up when we discussed earlier. So, can we say, without a doubt, that what happens to our ancestors will happen to us, the descendants? And I'm not lumping myself in with them. I would love to be Jewish if I knew I was, but what happens to the fathers happens to the sons. Is that correct? In a way of looking at this?
What happens to the fathers?
The fathers?
happens to the fathers happens to the sons.
It's Darth
that's
Vader
a-
to you.
Darth
Yeah.
Father.
Hello, Mara.
Darth-
Hello, Father.
Darth Vader means Darth Father. But
Oh,
no, what happens?
I knew you were
what
going to get
happens
Star
to
Wars
the-
in this.
What happens to the fathers happens to the sons is a rather interesting and confusing conundrum. I guess it all depends on the situation, because we've talked back and forth about what happens to the fathers happens to the sons every time. But from what I've seen, is it truly does solely depend on what the happening is, if you will.
Okay.
Because you're not going to, while you have the punishing of the fathers to the third and fourth generation, you have the repeating of instances with Jacob and Isaac, or Jacob and Abraham. You have all these moments of where familial ties works with everything, but at the same time, there's plenty of indication given in other areas where God flat out says, these things may happen in this fashion, but know this, each person is punished for their own sins.
Right.
Each person dies in their own sin, not someone dies for their sake.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, the reason I'm asking this in this fashion is because, according to some of the rabbis I've read on Chabad, that everything throughout Torah is laid out because not that we perpetuate, but we live over again the failures and successes of the ancestors. That Torah itself is a roadmap of lessons for us, because we're going to go through our highs and our lows in each of our lives. Each of our lives is going to be different. The understanding is that Jacob is leaving this idyllic, I guess is maybe not the right word, but he's leaving this spiritual area and he's going to Haran, which is this earthly, evil area. Haran, if I remember right, in Hebrew is wrath. Is that correct, Jesse? Haran.
It's a cognate of it.
Of
So
wrath.
yeah,
Right.
we'll just go with that. Is
Okay.
yeah, and again, that's a teaching. It's not
Right. Yes.
that the founders of Haran said, "Oh, we're wrathful individuals, so let's call this land wrath." No, it's
No.
a teaching on it. It's not.
Right. Right. So Jacob is descending into what you could call the physical world, whereas where he left was the spiritual world. And not 100% in either one, just that's what it's depicting. He's going to Haran to seek a wife, to make a living, and get all of this stuff, and then go back to the spiritual-esque place where his father was. So in essence, it's like the soul leaving heaven, coming to the earth, having to put up with all of the physical uncomfortableness of being here, and then returning. So that's what I meant by it. It's a roadmap that shows the pitfalls we can go through, but it is not a personalized roadmap for you or me or anybody else that says, okay, and this next step, exit 173A, Frank falls and hits his face. Okay, that's not it. That's not the roadmap I mean. Okay, I wanted to explain myself so that people don't go off on a tangent and said, say Frank said my name was in there and that's happening to me. No, that's not what I mean.
No, I think what you're reading and what you've been studying, I have no issues with whatsoever. The overarching foundation stone, the stone that Jacob laid his head to,
Right.
is this, and that is Adam sinned. And we all come from Adam. So we all share a part of one aspect of whatever this sin was. And is it not strange that we don't really fully understand what this sin is that Adam committed? He ate from a tree? Give me a break. It wasn't a physical tree. It wasn't a physical fruit. There's something else going on here with Adam. And so as a result, every one of our actions, every one of our lives individually are tied back to the correcting of this original sin of Adam. So we will find within our own lives, we will constantly come back to a type of individual that just really irritates us. We will constantly come back to, no matter where we move to, no matter where we live, no matter who we come in contact with, we will come in contact with those individuals that we're just unreasonably and intrinsically tied to. You know what? This guy's like my brother. I just met him last night at the bar or at church or wherever we go, and there's a familial spirit here. Whereas this individual, I hate them, and they didn't even have to say a word. Which worse is, there's this individual that hates me, and there's nothing I can do to change their mind about it.
Right.
And so we see this played out in all of our individual lives, because it's part of all of our intermixings with bringing about or dealing with that original sin of Adam. Now, I'm saying this in a very holistic aspect, because what Frank was bringing about of correcting your father's sins or having to relive the life of your fathers or the lives of your parents, though is true at some level, is not an absolute in
Correct.
how you live and what you do. So
Correct.
we see Jacob reliving a lot of things that his father, because that's how it's presented to us at the very beginning of this Torah portion, Abraham is his father, and oh yeah, I happen to be the God of Isaac as well. Wait a minute, I'm the son of Isaac, not Abraham's not my father, Isaac is. And so the Torah portion is telling us right off from the very beginning, Abraham is your father, because as was promised to Abraham, Abraham, from your bosom, I will bring forth a child, a male child. That just doesn't even sound right. Logically and physically, that can't happen. A man cannot bring forth his own child. But yet that was the son of promise. From Abraham's bosom will come a son. And I'm sure the 3.5 people in our audience are trying to follow me and figure this out. But that was the promise given to Abraham from your bosom. Well, men don't have bosoms, so it's a weird saying. Doesn't make sense in Hebrew, so we're going to translate it a little bit different under the Christian Bible. And then when we come down to certain things like this with Jacob, you're doing the exact same thing as your father Abraham. No, Jacob, your father was Isaac. I just read this last week. But we're seeing now, no, you're following the spiritual footsteps because you're on the path of correcting and providing for a blessing of all of mankind. So just as from Abraham, the son of promise is going to come, so from you, the son of promise, Joseph, is going to come. And as a result of how you establish your life and deal with the circumstances you're going through, then it will be firmly established, because things are established in patterns of 3. Hence, because of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Judaism believes once you've done something 3 times, you've established a tradition. And once you've established a tradition, it must be kept. That same application is applied to, what is this, the Department of Redundancy Department? The same idea is
the Department of Silly Walks.
Yeah, exactly. The same idea is applied to, so when you ask forgiveness, you must ask forgiveness 3 times, because only after 3 times is that forgiveness fully established. And so we see Tevye, we see whatever in whatever story or movie you've ever seen of some crazy silly rabbinic dancing Jew saying, "Do you forgive me?" "Yes, I forgive you." "No, you must say, 'I forgive you.'" "Okay, I forgive you." "Say it yet a 3rd time." "Do you forgive me?" "I forgive you." "Oh my goodness, Frank, you're a more righteous individual than I am, because I would not have required it 3 times. And
I don't think so.
Even in Islam, we have a similar thought pattern. "Here, have a piece of my candy." No, I can't have any of your candy." No. And so the giver must offer it 3 times. And the person receiving it must deny it twice and hear it offered a 3rd time. On the 3rd time it's offered, the receiver must accept it. And the giver is established as a giver, and the offer has now blessed the giver. And it's a strange concept that we can't even hardly fathom in a westernized mind. But that is what's going on here in the Torah portion. A truth has been established by the father Abraham, the father Isaac, and the father Jacob. A truth has been established in the world. The tradition is set. There is a place that is mystical. I'll say it magical, but only because many people won't understand what I'm trying to get to. It's mystical, and it's a point of reception, a point of revealing.
It is supernatural.
It is beyond physical realm, and it is a different plane of existence, but it is tied to a physical location. And this place, the world will continue to fight over and be disharmonied until that place is reestablished by physical man to be the point of contact of an everlasting, eternal being, God. Not that God cannot be any place else simultaneously. No, that's absurd. The point is, this place has been established, and now firmly established, because it's mentioned 3 times throughout our Torah portion readings, and no less than 3 times in this reading. And the blessing has been transcribed now for the 2nd time, and it will be transcribed for the 3rd time vicariously through Moses, as he's blessing all of the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And herein we have a even much stranger idea. And Frank, give me just a couple more seconds and I will shutting up again, like I always do.
While you're looking up what you're
I've got it right here. The sages say about this parasha and what I just described, and this is weird. Some people might not get the connection. The sages say that the riches of the diaspora, the riches of the exile, the riches that we gain coming out of Egypt, as well as the riches that we will gain in the final exile out of our diaspora going back to Israel, they carry no blessing. Those riches carry no blessing. Where did they get this from? After 7 years of labor for each wife and 10 children later, specifically the arrival of Joseph, which is the promised son, Jacob finally asks to leave Laban. 6 more years, and Hashem has to come to Jacob and say, get out. It's time to go. And the sages say this tells us exactly what Ecclesiastes 5:13 says, and I think in the Christian Bibles 5:12 or 5:13, there is a grievous evil which I have seen under the sun, riches being hoarded by their owner to his own hurt or his own demise. When those riches were lost through a bad investment, and he has fathered a son, then there was nothing to support him, the son. As he had come naked from his mother's womb, so shall he return as he came. He will take nothing from the fruit of his labor that he can carry in his own hand. This also is the grievous evil. Exactly this. As a man is born, thus will he die. So what is the advantage to him who toils for the wind? Chris, that makes no sense. What's that got to do with our Torah portion? Jacob went for a wife. He worked for 7 years for the one he did not want, Leah. Then another 7 years for the one that he already had, Rachel. And then he labored another 6 years for material wealth before God had to come and say, it's time to get out of this place. Return. 7 years for one, 7 years for another, and then another 6. And where are we today before God has to say, it's time to get out. It's time to return. You've toiled for nothing of spiritual advantage for yourself and for your sons and for your daughters. Return to your fathers. I always find this amazing. I've not voiced it out loud in the past for fear of the replication of it, but I no longer have fear of how people want to believe and what people want to say about me and what I think and what I'm trying to strive for. I'm striving for the truth regardless of your religion. But the prophet said, thus says the Lord, I will send my servant Elijah to restore the hearts of the sons to the fathers and the hearts of the fathers to the sons before that great and terrible day of my visitation, lest I curse the entire earth with a curse. So what's the point of Messiah again if Elijah has to come first? To make the way?
To make straight the way.
So we see the world in confusion today. What is right just 20 years ago is now a sin and evil. What was a sin and evil just 20 years ago is now the light, the path of enlightenment and perfection. And yet families are destroyed and ripped apart from the very seam and the very root. And you have brother against brother, sister against mother, father against son. In every family I've come across in the past 3 to 5 years, it only gets worse. And God promises that he will send Elijah before the great and terrible day of a judgment so that the hearts can be restored Otherwise, there's no hope. And Elijah must precede the coming of Messiah. So sometimes we don't understand when we think Messiah has fixed everything for us. But my son has become homosexual. My daughter has turned to prostitution and drugs. My father is a pedophile and a rapist. My mother is. And you've seen, and we all have people in our lives where these truths are reality for them. And yes, we can say there's hope in Jesus, there's hope in Yeshua, and that gives us a settlement of some kind that there's something better than ourselves. I'm not demeaning that in the slightest, but I've got to question, why must Elijah come before Messiah comes? Because Elijah restores the hearts of the sons to the fathers and the fathers to the sons. Elijah sets straight the way for the coming of Messiah. And so in Judaism, we still set a cup for Elijah on the time that we expect Messiah. We see the duplicity in all things. We see the masculine and the feminine because our language is structured that way. In English, it gets obscured. We don't know the past from the present. We don't know the future from the past. We don't know the physical from the spiritual. And so we have to analogize. We have to have an analogy of things to give us hope for something we don't understand. So now, Frank, Jesse, guess what? You guys get to wrap all this stuff up and make sense of what Shepherd Book just laid out for you.
I don't have a big enough role in it, but again, Jesse, what you said earlier, that the Father will not pay for the Son and the Son will not pay for the Father, etc. As far as sin goes, when I said that it's a roadmap, I didn't mean that you are physically locked in. You're doomed to repeat the same mistake over and over again. That's not what I meant. It's instruction. It's relevant to help you see mistakes that people have made. And then by studying, avoid, or at least avoid as much as possible. It is a roadmap to God. That's the simplest way I can put it, and it may not be the most accurate either. What do we do with the weekly Torah portion? Do we sit there and go, oh, that's nice, okay? Do we try to take it to heart? Do we just think it's another teaching? And if I say these few words, I'm okay? What? I've been asked before, Frank, why do you want to sing the blessing? Because the Torah is a gift from God. And it's only right to pay it respect when it's going to be read in context. Well, what does that matter? Because I respect and I fear God. I'm not holier than anybody else. I'm not, better than anybody else. I just respect God. And I try to every day. I try never to forget that. So all I can hope for is that, Elijah comes soon so that, my heart can be corrected and others' hearts can be corrected and we get all on the same page. That's what my hope is. Jesse, what about you?
Well, as I say every time, there's always so much that can be covered, and we only covered maybe about a hair's breadth of what could be found. No. Pinch my fingers really small. Yeah, that's about as much as we covered today. And there's so much more that we can find and discover in this portion by researching it over and over and over. Researching it is the wrong word. Studying it over and over and over. Well, when it comes to what I am trying to make sense of, that's strange. Can't make heads or tails the same. After everything that I just heard? No, I'm just teasing. But when it comes to this portion and what we have covered, Jacob is many aspects of not only the nation that will come after him, but also the ancestry that came before him.
Yes, I like that.
He is in many ways the epitome of what is needed, and can also show the many weaknesses as well. He covers so many aspects of both sides. But in one lifetime, how do you cover all of them? So in this portion and any portions both before and after this that deal with Jacob, we see what Israel should be by the teachings of Abraham. We see what Israel should become as a nation, and as us as individual people should be shooting for. This is the goal or the objective that is needed, and in all honesty, to run us back straight to the opening pages that started us on all of this, I would put forth that this is the way I see it in what Jacob put forth, and this is the way I believe at the very least I should do it. That is, God gave Jacob a promise then and there. And what Jacob did in response is not only praised God for the vision, for the promise that he gave Jacob, but also he turned to God and said, "Because you have made this promise to me, I will now make a promise to you. And it is through your promises here, because these are the promises you gave me. You will be my God. You will protect me. You will feed me. You will clothe me. Through these promises that you give to me, I give to you this home and a tenth of everything I own. And I will..." Basically, from what I see out of that, is giving him a home and giving tenth of everything he owns is Jacob's shorthand way of saying, "I will obey and then I will understand." Very similar to what happened on Mount Sinai.
I like that.
But that is my thoughts on this Torah portion and everything we have covered tonight.
Yeah, because, this is a favorite Torah portion where everybody likes to, beat up on Laban because he's such a bad guy, which he is. And everybody wants to, spiritualize everything else that Jacob does, which, okay, but what's the physical teaching here? And you're right. What is it said that there's like 70 different facets of each Torah portion? Is that right? 70?
I don't remember how many facets. I think my dad might know on that. Chris might know on that one. But there, I don't remember what the teaching is. But I sure as everything that I have seen here today is we only scratch the surface every time. And to quote an Isaac and Jacob situation here, the surface that we scratched gets covered up later on, and so we have to undig what we've already dug and then dig some more in order to show more each time.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that sometimes when we focus on some of the minuscule things, and really so much of it is minuscule, that over and over again, Adam was given how many commandments? We can say one, but he was probably given the enlightenment and revelation of all of Torah, and yet Adam still sinned. By that one commandment, you have everything. Just don't take this one. And whatever that was that he did it anyways. Whether it was, or as some want to interpret, he sinned so that the restoration could be much greater than the righteous individual. And therein is a teaching within Judaism that the one that has sinned and has been restored is greater than the one that never left. And we see this played out with Jesus and the prodigal son story. Some want to lord that over the prodigal son, and they think that the prodigal son is Judaism. They say, oh, but I'm better than you because I've returned. And they've missed the point. So we continue on with so many other things. And someone in the chat room was talking about Jesus as being God or not. And if you're listening to anything I've ever taught over any period of time, you would already know my personal opinion. But that's my opinion, and you have to come to your own opinion on your own. I cannot save you. No one can save you. Only you can save you. But I have multiple questions, such as, if you believe Jesus is God, if you believe the Messiah has come, if you believe the Messiah is here, or there's a Messiah coming in the future, however you want to believe, why would you fast and afflict your soul on Yom Kippur? That's a troubling question for Messianics. Because we as Messianics, we want to believe that Yeshua has come and has saved us, and his salvation of all of our sins. Then why would we keep Yom Kippur at all and afflict our souls? That almost leads to the idea that Messiah has not come if we're going to afflict our souls on Yom Kippur.
Paul said, run the race to the end, though.
And then we come to so many other things about Elijah. Like I said earlier, the prophecy is that Elijah must precede the Messiah. So in Yeshua's time, in Jesus' time, this same idea was there. It was prominent amongst the Jews. And so they go running and send messengers to John the Baptist, because they want to figure out, who is this guy? One, John the Baptist is the son of a high priest. And if you're a good student and you work it out, you can tell there is one time of the year that Jesus could not have been born by John the Baptist's lineage, and that is just in any time in December, let alone December 21st or 25th. But Messianics have already rejected December 25th and Christmas anyway, so I'm just preaching to the choir on this one. But look at John the Baptist. He's the son of a priest and the son of a high priest in his proper rotation. And something happens to this individual that now he's out in sackcloth, or I mean in a strange attire. He's not in a community of the priests. He's not in the community of the secluded. He is exiled from them in some way, either by himself or by the community. The community has exiled him. And he's out still preaching the kingdom of God. He's still out preaching the gospel. And so I've asked preacher and Christian over and over for over 40 years, what is the gospel? And they tell me one thing, and I rush back to the New Testament and I see, oh, the gospel is what John preached. The gospel is what Jesus preached. And what is this gospel? Repent, for the kingdom of God has been offered to you. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the New Testament definition of the word gospel. Repent, because the kingdom of God has been offered to you. It's not the death, burial, and resurrection. It's not how you believe. It's not what you do, what you don't do.
See, the funny thing is, whenever you word it in that fashion, it reminds me so much of the concept behind Yom Kippur. you say that is the New Testament definition of the gospel, and that brings to mind straight away, what do we do during Yom Kippur? What do we do? What did the nation of Nineveh do during Jonah's time, whenever Jonah came through?
Yeah,
and that's going to get us off on a completely different topic.
It is. We're running out of time, and I fear that the person that asked a question on the chat line is misunderstanding what I'm saying, and I don't want to be misunderstood. So the question is, because I said something that I cannot save you, nobody can save you, only you can save yourself, and that drives down into the very literal aspect of it. So I can save myself. Well, okay, you're misapplying what I'm saying, and that is, if you're going to chase every whim, every wind, every emotional appeal, then you'll be sorely disappointed every single time, whether it be a Buddhist, whether it be a Muslim, whether it be a Christian, whether it be a Jew, whether it be a Messianic. You must come up to the decision for yourself based on your life experience, your prayer, and your study. That's what I mean by only you can save you, not that not some other obscure aspect of that you're your own God. That's not what I'm getting at. You're not your own Messiah. You're not your own God. You're not your own source of salvation. But only you can come to the conclusions that you need to come to, and you have to face the challenges along the way and ask the right questions. And that is the point of this show, 2.5 Opinions, is to ask the questions. How are you asking questions? Whether it be in Judaism or Buddhism or other the Far East religions, the question of the student is more important than the teaching of the teacher, because it is the question that brings about enlightenment and understanding. Are you thinking properly and asking a proper question? Or are you just asking questions to show how smart you are or how stupid your teacher is? But are you asking questions to get towards and met eternal reality from God's point of view? Not from a preacher, teacher, rabbi, or anybody else. Are you chasing God's truth? And Jesse, I think your mic is still...
Yeah, because I can hear him typing away.
Typing away in there.
Sorry.
That's it for me. I am out of here once and for all. Okay. If you want other musings, quips, and aspirations or inclinations of me, well, you're just going to have to tune in maybe next week.
Yeah.
I'm out.
There's the Facebook 2.5 Opinions, and there's the other website, 2.5 Opinions. And you'll have to look at how Jesse will type them in so you can find them, because I don't remember. I mean, I know that Facebook is easy, but there's another website or email or whatever it was.
We have
spelled
a
out
Facebook and
2.5. Yeah. Yes. So anyway,
I thought we were an autonomous collective.
Now you see. The fallacy inherent in the system. Now,
Okay. I just... All right. So, with that, this is 2.5 Opinions. I'm Yishai.
I'm Frank.
I'm not the Rebbe.
Shepherd Book is not the Rebbe. We now have a full streamline on that one.
Yeah. You're going to have to tell me who you really are one day.
No, he doesn't.
No, I really don't. And if nobody's ever watched Serenity or half of the other movie quips and lines that we joke about all the time in this show, I feel sorry for you.
Yeah, me too. Anyway, thanks for listening. We enjoy your company. Show up again next week and be confused as equally as we are. So, with that, Jesse, I'll leave it to you.
Well, I'm going to keep talking for just a little bit. No. and we shall roll out once I finish this. No, I'm just teasing. Shavua tov, v'layla tov, v'lahira.
Okay. I guess we're going to close the room, so... Okay. Remember, the short, disclaimer here is, if your speakers break or your computer breaks because I sing, I am in no way liable for any damages caused by that or any cameras that take my picture, okay? So, let me see if I can remember the song. Let me see. Do I remember the words? Okay. Mizmor shir leyom hashabos. Mizmor shir leyom hashabos. Mizmor shir leyom hashabos. Mizmor shir leyom hashabos. The whole world is waiting to sing the song of Shabbos. The whole world is waiting to sing the song of Shabbos. And I am also waiting to sing the song of Shabbos. I am also waiting to sing the song of Shabbos. The flowers and the trees sing the song of Shabbos. The valleys and the mountains sing the song of Shabbos. The stars in the skies sing the song of Shabbos. The angels in heaven sing the song of Shabbos. The whole world is waiting to sing the song of Shabbos. The whole world is waiting to sing the song of Shabbos. And I am also waiting to sing the song of Shabbos. I am also waiting to sing the song of Shabbos. I saw 6 million dying. They sang the song of Shabbos. I hear 3 million crying to sing the song of Shabbos. Stop all the hatred, sing the song of Shabbos. Love one another, sing the song of Shabbos. Dance on the street, sing the song of Shabbos. Dance on the street, sing the song of Shabbos. The whole world is waiting to sing the song of Shabbos. The whole world is waiting to sing the song of Shabbos. And I am also waiting to sing the song of Shabbos. Mizmor shir leyom hashabos. There. Are you happy now, Charlotte? Do it again. Come on, will you?